Sushant. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, folks, today we will be talking about cancers. So, couple of weeks we have seen that there's been a lot of discussions regarding cancers, the progression of cancer, and what all treatments are effective in case of cancer. So, Sushant, please help us decode the facts because a lot of people are saying that here doctors are more willing to go into chemotherapy rather than focusing on nutrition, right?
Mm, mm,
And because lot of people on social media, they are just becoming gyan pandits
mm.
by merely saying that doctors know everything, but we really want to know, for patients, for the cancer survivors, that actually where nutrition is playing a role in helping them effectively treat cancer.
Okay, so first we have to understand basic. I think we discussed this long back that uh, we everyone 99.9% doctors understand cancer wrong, right? And I'm making a strong statement today that cancer is not a genetic disease. It is not caused by random genetic mutation, as somatic mutation theory has been believed and has doctors have been believed. We know that when we visited one of the great hospitals and we met an oncologist, right? And they were showing us some DNA sequencing report, right? And again, I was laughing at that because being an oncologist serving for 15 years, they still do not understand uh, what cancer is, right? So again, cancer, as has been proven now, is a metabolic disease, the mitochondrial metabolic disease, right? And genetic mutations, which generally are random and decoded by the oncologist, is just the downstream epiphenomenon. It is just downstream effect of mitochondrial dysfunction, right? And mitochondrial dysfunction could be caused by various factors. One of the strongest factor is chronic inflammation, right? Which could be caused whether it is happening in mouth, gut, brain, everywhere, right? And again, we know that since 99% of the our biology is governed by microbiome, so microbiome has a role to play in inflammation, then oxidative stress, then environmental toxins, genotoxins, pesticides, potential carcinogens, uh, in a lot of foods we eat in environment, right? Even carcinogens such as asbestos, which is found in cements and a lot of material which is used to build home, these they also have potential carcinogens. So there are a lot of factors which could lead to mitochondrial dysfunction, right? But before that, I'll just take a quick 2 minutes to get into get back into time that around 2.5 billion years ago when there was no oxygen, right? How do cells used to get energy? Because for everyone, for people who are naive and do not understand this, that mitochondria oxidizes nutrition. In the presence of oxygen, they convert whatever you eat into ATP, right? ATP is the our energy currency, right? And byproduct is obviously water vapor, right? And then 89% of the energy is generated through this model and 11% through substrate level for phosphorylation, which is in the non-oxygen environment. So again, when we go to 2.5 billion years ago, there was no oxygen and cells used to ferment, right? And that was an unregulated growth, and they used to ferment till the fermentable fuels dissipated and cells died. That was evolutionary biology, right? And then over time, there was a symbiotic relationship between bacteria and various organisms which could harvest energy of cells, energy of oxygen in the cells, and that leads to the evolution of life, right? And the multicellularity of the organism, what we call as mitochondria. So we have these origin of mitochondria in the cytoplasm, right? And cytoplasm is so cell we have nucleus and cytoplasm. So they are genes in your nucleus, and then you have this cytoplasm which has the mitochondria. And again, mitochondria is something. It regulates your cell growth, it regulates your cell cycle, and it also produces ATP, right? So it is a epicenter of energy metabolism. So everything is energy period, right? Everything is about energy, right? So so when we have these inflammation going on, which triggers a lot of pro-inflammatory factors like cytokines, IL-6, and a lot of these things, which impacts your cell. And again, it is not apoptosis. It is not immediate cell death. It is a chronic uh, mitochondrial dysfunction. So if it's immediate, then mitochondria will go, right? So it will not produce ROS, right? But again, in case of chronic damage to mitochondria because of inflammation of stress or environmental toxins, or even things such as tobacco consumption, alcohol consumption, right? These are one of the factors, not the only factor for onset of cancer, right? So again, in this case, even in the presence of oxygen, right? So the issue is when there is no mitochondrial dysfunction, there is an insufficient respiration or there is damaged respiration, right? So it means that your mitochondria can no longer use oxygen to generate energy, right? And again, what happens is even though there is oxygen, it uses it to produce reactive oxygen species, right? And ROS is something which is mutagenic and carcinogenic. So it kills your DNA, RNA, protein, lipids, and that's how you have these genetic mutations, right? So most of the doctors are focusing on genetic mutations, right? Decoding genetic mutation, killing those mutations through chemotherapies, right? So I'll share two things here before we move on the nutrition part, right? So first thing is nuclear mitochondrial transfer experiments were done where it was found that a normal cytoplasm was when put in a normal nucleus. So nucleus is your genetic genes, right? So there was a regulated growth. When the abnormal or tumorous cytoplasm was put in the normal nucleus, it was a dysregulated growth, right? Because it was cancerous situation. When abnormal cytoplasm was put in the abnormal nucleus, it was a dysregulated growth. But when normal cytoplasm was put in the tumorous genetic mutation, there was regulated growth, right? So it was clearly established that it is not genetic mutation, but it is the damaged mitochondria which causes cancer, which triggers genetic mutations. So first of all, we are addressing the effect, not the cause, right? So the problem is within a tumor, which is again a group of cancer cells, each cell have different constellation of genetic mutations, right? So there is a huge uh, genetic mutation heterogeneity, diversity, right? And it can vary from 10 mutation to 100 to 50 to 2000 mutations, right? So when you do chemotherapy, immunotherapy, radiation therapy, a lot of these therapies, right, it targets certain specific mutations, right? What we call as driver mutations, right? So a lot of these cancer cells would bypass these therapies, right, easily because they have a different set of genetic mutations, right? Because doctors are targeting on killing mutations, not targeting on fixing mitochondria. So they bypass and then again, they start to proliferate and grow. Even there are certain driver mutations which have been found in normal healthy cells, for as kidney, liver, right, lungs. So your chemotherapy is even destroying those healthy cells, which makes you develop other diseases, even if you survive cancer, which is again a very low survival rate right now. You will develop other diseases like chronic kidney disease, heart disease, neurological disorders, right? So there's a huge damage you're doing by taking this toxic byproduct. So there's no way if you have an oral cancer, you should get rid of your hairs, right? That is not a thing, right? So again, there's a intertumor, intratumoral genetic mutation heterogeneity, which has not been taken care of by the doctors. That is one of the thing. And again, these doctors do not study microbiome, so they're forgetting. And I'll come to that specific case which we were discussing, right? About the news which were coming, and I'll do not name anyone, but I'll share a bit of it. So second thing is that what is important is since it is for consumers, so I'm not getting too much technical details, right? So this cancer cells, until it is a myeloid cells and which is immune cells, right? Uh, so they have their genetic program to move, enter blood circulation, enter different cells, right? So most of the immune cells, such as either myeloid cells or macrophages, right? These are the cells which are genetically programmed or given instruction to go a particular site, whether it is a wound or injury or inflammation, to address that, to remove or repair the damaged cells, whether it is stem cell or it is you know, macrophages. But these macrophages do have stem cell properties, because stem cells also uses fermentation for energy metabolism, but doesn't mean that stem cell is causing cancer. In so if stem cell is actually fusing with those neoplastic cells, which is cancer cells, then only they can, or epithelial cells which are cancer, which is then only you can actually to cancer. So what happens is macrophages, when they see, and again they go to the side of wound or injury, or where inflammation is going on, so that is a tumor microenvironment where this cancer cell is there, so they fuse with them. And again, macrophages, from being respired to start fermenting, right? So the dilution of cytoplasm of macrophages with the cytoplasm of cancer cell, which is again gone bust because of tumoral growth, because of cancer. And again, this macrophages become rogue, and since they are genetically programmed to move every other single body parts, and in a non-random fashion. So generally, which are the body organs or tissues which is there's a lot of wear and tear? It is your kidneys, your liver, your lungs, your bones, right? So if you see, most of these cancer situation would happen, the secondary tumor formation would happen. So these become raw and they start spreading everywhere, especially on these non-random locations. So that's why what is called is metastatic cancer, or spread of cancer to other body parts, right? So it is a complex biology where there is invasion, intravasion, extravasion, immune suppression, and secondary tumor formation which happens, right? So this is one aspect of it, right? Now, coming on to nutrition, since we have this huge genetic mutation heterogeneity, right? So it is important to understand that cancer cells ferment, right? They do not respire, they ferment. It means in the absence of oxygen, they ferment certain fuels which then make them grow, right? Without energy, nothing can grow, right? So they extract energy through glucose and glutamine. It was established way back in 1920 by Otto Warburg that cancer cells ferment glucose, right? And again, glutamine has been recently discovered. So again, doctors have never understood this, right? And they still focus on chemotherapy, right? Rather than just seeing whether the cancer is even fermenting. When they ferment glucose and glutamine, they produce lactic acid and succinic acid, which is again in protectant for cancer cells. It makes chemotherapy ineffective, and that is one of the few reasons. One is genomic heterogeneity, and the byproducts of lactic acid and succinic acid, right, which makes chemotherapy ineffective, right? In fact, lactic acid is one of the key biomarkers to detect the mitochondrial dysfunction, right? Even in case when people have heart attack during small phase, when there is no oxygen because of no oxygen blood flow because of heart attack, the cells start fermenting, and you will see a lot of lactic acid in the patients who had survived the heart attack, right, in the blood circulation. So this is the two most reason why chemotherapies fail. So coming on to nutrition, when you have a nutrition choices where you could deprive or starve the cancer cells of the fermentable fuels, for instance, glucose and glutamine, right? While feeding the uh, right food for the healthy cells to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, to simulate more energy efficiency, right? So it's like a weighing balance, right? You starve those cancer cells while you give more energy to the healthy cells, right? So that is one way to kill a lot of these cancer cells, or starve a lot of these cancer cells. And then whatever is remaining balance are those who have same genetic and biochemical properties, right? So they have the genetic homogeneity, right? Which then can be eliminated through chemotherapy, right? So essentially, when you have cancer, when you have detected cancer through PET scan and through other physical examinations or other tests, right? The first step should be obviously to starve the cancers of the fermentable fuels. And then when the balance is remaining, again by checking PET scan, you could actually, eliminate the genomic homogeneity through these therapies, right? That should be the right approach to go about it, right? So that is something which is very, very important to understand. Yeah.
So I think with this, it's very clear that, nutrition plays a pretty extensive role here. Okay? Because, a lot of times there are conclusions that you should simply jump to the chemotherapies, right? And I think the ideal approach here should be that you should focus more on nutrition initially, right? And see whatever kind of tumor growth is happening and then detect it. And then I think going for the chemo should be the approach. Because
Yeah,
if you
it should
see
be
it like
second
that,
step. It should be second step.
okay,
You should
yeah,
not immediately jump upon, okay, I have cancer treating PET scan, so let me do chemo, let me eliminate some genetic mutation. It doesn't happen like that, right? So
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
there's so much genomic heterogeneity that you can't kill all. You can't take so much of toxin inside your body, right? Otherwise you
yes,
anyways will die, right? So
mm,
ideally is that you have to first eliminate the starve the tumor cells which have genome heterogeneity without chemotherapy through nutrition, and then the balance which has a chemical biochemical properties, same genetic mutations, could be eliminated through chemotherapy, right? So there has to
mm,
be a blend of that, but the first step should be always nutrition. That is first thing, right? And second thing is, again, I wanted to discuss about the news and the fiasco which happened about this particular case, which people doctors were saying that turmeric and neem is not a solution and blah blah blah, blah, right? A lot of these things which we heard, everyone heard on the social media, right? And there were a lot of discussion and heated arguments on that, right? So so one thing is very very clear, that first thing you have to understand that the inflammation for a lot of cancer, specifically pancreatic cancer and breast cancer and colon cancer. These are three major cancers, and oral cancer obviously starts from mouth, right?
mouth,
So
yes,
for breast cancer, I think we did a talk on this as well earlier, that there's a particular oral bacteria called Physiobacterium nucleatum, which could
mm,
move in case of inflammation, and its metabolic byproduct could move to breast, and it has been found that this particular bacteria was found in breast microbiome, right? And it
mm,
causes
mm,
inflammation, it causes pro-inflammatory and pro-tumorous environment, right? Tumor microenvironment. Now, turmeric, what it does is, so turmeric initially, right? So essentially, it could penetrate the biofilm formed by this bacteria. So again, biofilm is like caves, right? If people understand this, like we have Ajanta Ellora caves and all that, right? So it's a cave form in mouth, right? And again, this can penetrate the biofilm and can suppress this bacteria, right? So it can reduce the inflammatory aspect of it, right? There are certain other, so Physiobacterium is one bacteria, that is P. gingivalis, again, which is again an oral bacteria, right? Even so these are found in cases of Physiobacterium has been implicated in on certain progression of breast cancer, colon cancer, P. gingivalis in pancreatic cancer, right? And again, these both are found in oral cancer as well, right? So that is something which is important to understand, that and it will only be understood when you understand microbiome science, right? So people still do not think that microbiome is has something to do with our health, right? There are people who neglect this fact, and there are research people around it. So there are a lot of evidence, a lot of companies doing it, right? Apart from us. So ideally, this is something very important to understand, and doctors have to embrace this fact that they have to upgrade their knowledge. There's a lot of reading in scientific literature. It's only that we have to read and implement, right? So that is something, obviously we don't need to consume too much of glucose and glutamine, right? But
mm,
I'll tell you an interesting, there's a concept called cancer cachexia, right? And again, it is a situation when you have cancer, they eat up a lot of energy, they hijack you of the energy, and your bones start diluting, the amino acids gets into your bloodstream, go to liver, and liver through glucogenesis, convert into sugar, right? So again, and because you're losing weight, most of the healthcare practitioners would say, start consuming a lot of sugar and glucose because you're losing weight, and you are actually knowingly unknowingly you're feeding cancer cells, because they do
yeah,
not appreciate the
that's,
fact that nutrition has a role to play in at least successful management of cancer, even not prevention, right? Or not preventive recurrence, right? At least successful management of cancer, because you are feeding the food to those rogue cancer cells which are meant to destroy or spread everywhere and kill you, right?
That's correct. That's actually correct. So I think for cancer patients, what should we have already discussed that what should be the ideal course, but how long will it actually take the healthcare practitioners to understand that? Because we know that they ideally, I mean, usually they do dismiss the idea of nutrition, right? For them, there's a standard thing that you eat more protein because you want energy, you need energy, you should eat more protein, you should eat more this and that. The macros, they're mostly focusing on that. That has been the standard clinical practices, right? So how do we transition from there?
See, there's a saying in Hindi, बुरा मत कहो बुरा मत सुनो, है ना? So it's the same thing, they close their eyes and their brain and their ears to these things, right? They have to read scientific papers. And the thing is, if you go and teach them, they'll say, who are you to teach us? We have been practicing for last 20 years. You're no one to teach us, right? The fact is, you have to read, right? The only thing is, we have to be scientifically literate. This is what happened with our father also, right? We we did that and we educated the doctors, right? We did tell them this is what you're doing wrong, right? So ideally, you have to be scientific literate and tell doctor this is the way out, this is the science, please read through it, right? Do not force. So we cannot tell doctors, right? We have to be at right now we are no, so they will not buy this fact, right? But the thing is, if you as a patient, if you have a cancer and you have scientific literate and you can understand this fact that there's a mitochondrial dysfunction and there's nutrition, there's a lot of genome heterogeneity, there's a lot of driver mutation found in healthy cells. For instance, asbestos, when you are ingesting asbestos through environment, it does not have any genetic mutations. So some cancer, 30% of cancer do not have genetic mutations, right? So again, you would not, it will never come in your DNA sequencing, right? So how do you, you would be told that you do not have cancer, or it's not there, or there are certain lesions, but but the fact is that you have to be scientifically literate. It's not difficult to understand. It's very simple to understand that your mind. So key point before we wrap up: mitochondria is the epicenter of energy metabolism. It has its old DNA, right? Separate from human and microbial DNA, right? Uh, Cancer is an outcome of damaged respiration. Genetic mutation is just the downstream effect, right? There's a huge genetic mutation heterogeneity. See, within the same tumor, there will be different cells will have different constellation of genetic mutations. So there is nothing that if you use chemotherapy, it will kill all genetic mutation. It doesn't happen. So a lot of genetic mutation bypass that, and then they start growing and proliferating. There are certain driver mutations which are said to cause cancer, also found in healthy cells. So by taking chemotherapy, you may be impacting it. If you're not focusing on nutrition, if you are not eliminating glucose from your diet, you are feeding cancer cells. They are producing lactic acid, which is uh, and succinate acid from glutamine, which is creating a shield for cancer cells. It is making chemotherapy ineffective, right? So ideally, you have to first understand whether you have cancer. First thing is obviously we have to understand whether you're moving towards cancer. There's a lot of we are doing that. We started oral cancer. So we for address oral cancer, we can give you a lot of inflammatory markers with respect to other cancers also, right? But as of now, we don't have any tests for other cancers apart from oral cancer, right? But you can, first thing is obviously you understand whether you're moving towards cancer and you prevent it, right? So it's a pre-PET scan situation where there are molecular markers which is causing mitochondrial dysfunction, which is making you develop cancer. That is first thing. uh, Second thing is, if you have cancer, PET scan shows probably, first starve your this thing, tumor cells. If you go for chemotherapy, start with slow doses of chemotherapy. Starve your consists of glucose and glutamine, right? While taking a lot of antioxidants and polyphenols and a lot of these things and herbs which could either kill these bacteria causing inflammation, or maybe promoting good things, promoting mitochondrial biogenesis for other cells, right? And then when you have starved a lot of them, again you can check through PET scan again. The thing is, you could eliminate those which are remaining, which have the same genetic properties, could be eliminated through chemotherapy, right? So these are the few things people should learn, which is very important.
I think that was a very interesting discussion here today. And thank you for sharing these scientific insights with us. I'm sure there are a lot of citations that people may want to check after listening to this video, which we will be sharing in the description. So please do have a look at that before raising any questions, because whatever we here are sharing information is all based on scientific research. So
Yeah,
thank
so
you, Sushant,
please
for your
read scientific
yes,
papers. Do not assume
yes,
anything. Do not start passing any
yes,
comments. Yeah,
yes, yes. Thank you so much.
thank
So
you.
thank you, and we will be seeing all of you folks in another discussion. Thank you.